Pandora's Box, Halloween edition. Welcome again to Pandora's Box. You're listening to Aspen Waite Radio, and you actually also might be on YouTube checking us out for our podcast that we've been doing. This is our third podcast now up on YouTube. So wherever you're watching us, hope you're having a good day, guys. This is going to be a Halloween edition of Pandora's Box, as it's the last Pandora's Box before Halloween. Naturally how it goes, you know. So I'm your host, as always, this time of the week, Miss Calum Waite, or is my name in fact Obadiah Pennywhistle. With me, as usual, this afternoon, we've got young Bullwinkle, Nathaniel Warren. Do you want to give yourself a spooky alias today?
Twangle.
That is spooky, man. And Mr. Drew Armstrong.
Hello there.
What's your alias for today, man? Spooky?
Orb
and Twangle.
Oh, I like that.
Orb and Twangle. So that track to play us in today was the gruesome, the grotesque, the dark, the evil Black Sabbath with their classic track War Pigs. Love a bit of Black Sabbath. Love a bit of Ozzy Osbourne.
Bit of Ozzy.
So yeah, let's talk about all sorts of gruesome things today. I think today we're going to talk a little bit about serial killers.
Ooh.
It's suitably dark for such a time. And I was thinking it would be quite fun to just talk about like things like cryptids as well. Like ask your
cool.
a guy's opinions on cryptids, things like that.
Cryptids?
Yeah, cryptids.
What are cryptids?
So cryptids are like considered like anything. So you could even be, I doubt it pays very well, you could be like a cryptozoologist, for example. So like a zoologist would be like somebody that like studies animals. A cryptozoologist is like somebody that studies animals that may or may not exist. Or like creatures that may not exist. So like Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster. I guess you could even say things like werewolves and that. I guess that probably would like fall under it.
Into it. I think even like mythological stuff and just stuff that's very obviously made up, like Sirenhead. That all falls into cryptids and stuff, I believe.
When you say Sirenhead, what do you mean?
Have you heard of Sirenhead? So it's basically...
Is that a place or?
No. So it's this creature that's like almost like Slenderman, if you think what Slenderman looks like.
Yeah. So for anybody that doesn't know, Slenderman is like supposed to be like a really tall, almost like white, very very skinny, not really suit. Man, but yeah, like wearing a suit, but with like no facial features.
Yeah.
Isn't he?
So ditch the suit.
Yeah.
And ditch the man or the head. And imagine you've got a bunch of sirens, and it's just this tall, like looming, lanky figure that strolls about.
When you say
woods.
sirens, you mean like the other mythological sort of creatures, sirens? Do you?
Literally, just think of what like a siren is. So like big horns, pretty much.
Right, okay.
And the story is, I think it's one of the SCP monsters. If you've ever heard of that.
I have heard a bit of that.
It's something like that. And I think the idea is that the sirens are meant to replicate voices, so you're lost in the forest, and you'll hear like voices that are familiar to you. So maybe you'll hear like your brother, and you'll be like, oh, he's here too. You know, I got to go find him. And then you find it, and it's this 20-foot tall siren man.
that actually like ties in real similar to actually like the old like almost like original tale of actual like sirens. Do you know about them so much? No. So like, that's why I asked you when you said about sirens, because obviously you got like a siren as in like you're in wartime and the sirens have gone off. You're like that siren. But then like there used to be like tales, like sailors used to tell stories of sirens. You probably heard it before, Drew, I imagine. Oh, sorry. Orb. Sailors would say that, they'd been at sea for weeks and then they'd come across like a little, like some craggly rocks that were just sticking out of the sea, and they'd say that there were like what looked like beautiful women on them.
Right.
Ooh. But then they would like get closer and they'd almost like be like calling them in and stuff like that.
Right.
Either that or like, a bit like what you were saying, like tales that maybe like they'd hear like their mother's voice or like their like wife's voice or something, or their daughter's voice, and then they'd get closer and it would be like essentially like a monster.
You hear about it like the mist as well, like at sea. Is it that kind of thing where you can hear like voices in the mist and stuff and like calling you out to the mist?
Creepy, man.
Because mermaids are originally meant to be evil, aren't they?
Are they?
I think so. Maybe I've just got that from Pirates of the Caribbean.
The credible historical source that is Pirates of the Caribbean.
I get all my information from.
I get all my information from Johnny Depp just as a pirate. Yeah, man. I do think there's loads of fascinating, like, cool old tales there, like about the sea, and I think, like, the sea still seems so mental today. I mean, we were talking about it on Pandora's Box a couple of weeks ago, weren't we? About like some of the crazy.
I think we were last week as well, saying about how all when we were talking about the depths that weren't explored. I think that was the first
Mariana
Trench
and stuff like that. Yeah. And we were talking about like giant creatures, and I was going on about how there's supposed to be like six what are considered like sea monsters still yet to be found. But yeah, Keter's curve, using that Keter's curve sort of. But yeah, imagine literally being like living like 500 years ago or like 1,000 years ago, and like literally like going out to sea, like how crazy it would have seemed. Because obviously like nowadays we can like just go on YouTube or like buy a boat and we can like look at all pictures of like, you know, all the animals that you find in the sea. But if you just, you know, you were just born, you know, your local boat builder just made a ship like Viking style, and you just travelled, say, from like Norway to Britain or something. I
was gonna say as well, like Vikings always brought that home to me. Like when you watch it, it's just like how crazy it must have been, just like going out into the unknown, not knowing if you're gonna come back again, not knowing if you're gonna hit land again, and just trusting and just like going to other places. Crazy. And
think like nowadays we know that like the biggest creatures in the sea are all like filter feeder whales. So we know that they're like we know that they're not gonna like attack us. You know, they just eat like krill, like tiny fish and stuff, and shrimp. But it's like, you wouldn't know that. Like back in the day, you just wouldn't have that information. You'd probably have like some crazy uncle or something that would be like, yeah, once I saw one eat an entire ship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
if you saw something like that, you'd be like, oh my God, you know, something that huge, and you know, and you didn't know anything about it. Of course you'd think that's going to eat you, you know? Something
that was like 60 foot long. 60 plus foot long. Just like, and they always say, don't they, that like seeing stuff like that on like film and like in pictures doesn't do it justice. They say that when you see things like that in the flesh, you're like, whoa.
I think even now that I know, like even though they're just krill, if I was out in a little boat and some humpback whale like came and started swimming past me, I'd be paranoid now.
I think it's just that it's scary to think, because when we're on land most of the time, especially where we live in Britain, it's like we are, let me just think. Well, yeah, but apart from like cows and like horses, we're like the biggest thing around, aren't we, really? And like deer, you know, in the places of the UK that have deer, like where we live and stuff. But it's like, other than that, it's like you're used to being like one of the biggest things around you. You know, you like walk around, like, you know, say you're chilling in your garden, you walk around your neighbourhood, there'll be like, you know, a couple of dogs, there'll be cats, little birds, you know, things like that. But it's like, we're so not used to feeling dwarfed.
Yeah.
So to be next to something which is like as big to you as like you are to like a rat or something is, or like, do you know what I mean? That's like a sketchy thought.
Oh, 100%.
You know, that's
I never really thought of it that way, to be fair.
That's like like, it's almost like, you know how like accidentally like everyone does it, like, and every now and again you'll like accidentally step on a snail or something and you feel like a little bit bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like that sketchy feeling, like, you know, it might, if it doesn't know you're there and it like flips its tail hard, you could just get like squashed like a bug.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that feeling of like almost like insignificance.
Yeah. I always like what you said as well about is it killer whales, that they almost understand our orcas, so they like almost understand our intelligence, so they won't use their sounds as loud because they know it'll like hurt our hearing and stuff like that.
That's sperm whales.
Oh, sperm whales.
Yeah, that's sperm whales. They're the loudest animals on the planet. If a sperm whale speaks essentially as loud as they can, then it would be louder than like a Boeing 747, like standing next to like the jets of a Boeing. So it would literally blow out your eardrums. But they're so they're intelligent enough that they know that we couldn't handle it.
To use their indoor voice.
Yeah. They literally whisper. They essentially whisper.
That's crazy.
And apparently, like for divers that have been in the sea next to them when they're doing it, apparently they still say that it like sends like shockwaves through their body. They literally like feel it in like every little like they feel like their bones like rattling like when it happened and stuff. So it's like proper crazy, isn't it? But yeah, like cryptids of the sea and stuff. Like, I know we talked a little bit about this as well, haven't we? Because we're talking about like giant squid and stuff. Obviously, the old tales of like the Kraken. And things like that, and yeah, like sirens. What are your guys' views on things like Bigfoot? Like, what do you think? Because obviously, like, there are some people out there that like swear down, don't they, that they've like seen Bigfoot and stuff like that. There's obviously like not just Bigfoot, obviously very similar creature, but like the Yeti in like the Himalayas. There's like his tales of like the Yeti. In North America, you've got Bigfoot. I think there's like some other like sort of ape-like cryptids around the world as well, like in different places. I'm just trying to think of like the names of them. Yeah, Sasquatch. I think that is basically North American as well, isn't it? I think that might be like the old.
Might even be Bigfoot.
I think that might be like the more like ancient, you know, like Native American tribe name.
I love the idea that they're real. And I just really like the idea of there's things out there that we don't know about.
Me too.
Like, that's so cool. And do you remember that what you were saying about before about those guys that I think we might have talked about it on the podcast before actually, like mysterious kind of unexplained things, and those guys that went trekking like deep into the mountain ranges and into the woods, and they built their kind of fort there, and then they heard all these like mysterious sounds, and you can actually listen to the tapes of these weird creatures and that were almost like monkey-like.
That's the most, to me, so like my views on Bigfoots and things like that, I think for the most part, I think like 99.9% of like stuff I hear about it, I think is probably either misidentified and other animal sightings. But usually I think probably bears. Because bears, I think a lot of people don't realise that like bears can walk on their hind legs. And I think sometimes, it's like if it's like late in the day, or if you're like a bit tired and stuff like that, how like you can just see things in the corner of your eyes that aren't there anyway. And I'm talking about like normal sane people. I'm not talking, you do have to be like on mushrooms or anything like that. I think, imagine it was like getting late in the day, and then like from like 50 yards away, you just saw something that was like
figure.
Yeah, that was like sort of looked like a man, but was bigger, and it was walking on its back feet.
Fluffy.
Yeah, and imagine if it had its back to you as well or something, so you couldn't really see the snout or something like that.
Yeah.
You'd be like, what the hell is that? Especially if you weren't used to seeing animals, like things like hunters and things like that in like North America. They're used to going out, like, oh, that's that. But even there, like I remember I was watching this podcast with this guy called Steve Ranella, who's like a prolific like hunter in North America and sort of like a conservationalist and stuff like that, conservationalist. But he was saying even him, like sometimes he'll see stuff in the wild and he has to like double take it, because for a second he'll think like, what is that? And then once he sort of hones in and it's like a mind makes sense of it, he's like, oh, okay, that's that. But at first his mind like almost like made something crazy. You know how like, they say like humans are like programmed to see faces and things. Yeah. So you could like see like a pattern in like a rug or a curtain and you could like make a face out of it. It's almost like the human brain naturally does that. So it's like your brain almost like makes something.
Yeah.
What almost like in that moment it will just make something. But then that imprint with some people, that imprint will then stay, and then they'll be like, no, this is what I saw. Yeah. Even though it's not really what they saw. We're always
taking information, aren't we? And we're like, your brain has to interpret that information. So in that kind of way it does that, it can get like, skewed somewhat. Yeah,
that case though, that what I showed you, Orb. That is by far the most compelling sort of like Bigfoot stuff. Do you know about that at all?
I haven't seen it.
I think it's called the Sierra Leone. Bigfoot audio tapes. So this was like in the 60s, and I think one of the things I find most compelling about it was this was like before, there was like audio tampering equipment and stuff like that.
So this was straight up tape. It was onto like tape and went.
So it's just an old school, just one of those tiny little tapes you would put in like a cassette player, and it was essentially like cowboys, and they knew this spot, and in the absolute middle of nowhere in the Californian wilderness. So they literally like apparently like that it was like so out in the middle of nowhere. Like they reckon that humans had like either like never been there or like hadn't been there for like hundreds of years. So it was like the way that they described it on what I watched was that they had to like park up, and then they had horses, and then they trekked on horseback about like 40 miles until they got to like such rugged terrain that horses couldn't like walk across it.
Yeah.
So then they hitched up their horses there. And then they hiked like another like sort of like 30 miles into like, so they were like 70 miles away from like.
So they were in the deep.
Yeah, they were like 70 miles away from like the car park, which was already like driven right out into like the middle of nowhere in this like wildlife park. And then they would like stay there like every year. These like three, I think it was three guys, like these three sort of like cowboys. But then they just said that like weird stuff would happen. So at first they almost like would hear like weird noises in the middle of the night. And then like things started getting thrown at them and stuff like that. But the weird thing about this case is they also said that they saw like weird lights. I think, funnily enough, Orb said that they saw like weird orbs and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to get up. I'm going to try and find it.
Oh yeah, we should play a little bit on the show. I think like the actual tape.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm pretty sure it's Sierra Leone. Also, another way it's called, they call it like the samurai Bigfoot, because it sounds almost like what you imagine like a little old Japanese man, speaking like.
And they start like speaking back to it as well, don't they? They start going, oh.
Yeah, they start trying to like imitate the sounds back.
Right.
And Yeah, there's like this weird dialogue. But apparently it got so crazy and so intense one night that they built this weird little like makeshift, not even really a cabin, like just like a little. Yeah. They gathered up all these planks of woods and they almost made like a little teepee out of it, but like against a tree, so it was like solid. And then they just were there with their rifles all night, and they said that they seriously thought that they were going to get attacked. But
do they reckon there's more than one then? Maybe.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. It sounded like there was like quite a few of them all around, you know, in the woods and stuff, and like chucking sticks around and making noises and everything. Right, this is what it's called. Weird. So it's called the Sasquatch Sierra Sounds. Ron Moorhead and Al Berry in Yeah, so this is just straight up old school audio cassette tape, no tampering. Weird.
Laughing at him.
So that's them like calling back, I think.
So weird. Like, what animal is that, if that is an animal, you know? That was weird.
That's the first one where I've been like, alright, that's a bit strange.
Imagine being like 2 in the morning in the middle of the fucking woods and you're like 70 miles away from the nearest car park and you hear that in the middle of the night.
So if anyone's just tuned in right now, they're going to think, what is going on?
What the hell's going on? They'll be like, Aspen Waite's been taken over by weird samurai Bigfoot. The thing is, as well, like, the chance is like if you were like in say like a normal national park or something, you just went camping, you could think that maybe it was like people hoaxing you.
Yeah, but the fact that you know that you're so far away from anyone, like, you know.
Yeah, these guys were like, I'm pretty sure they were like park rangers, like sort of proper like rugged Bear Grylls style guys, right. Like cowboy styles. But like, you know,
it's probably why they're calling back. I don't know if I'd be calling back.
Yeah. They were like they had rifles and stuff, but they still said they were terrified. I think that they said that like they were like almost like surrounded by it, like the noises were coming from all angles, and they were like throwing rocks and branches and stuff, so it was like very aggressive.
Across the creek at the big rocks.
But it's like if it was in this area where like they were saying like most people not only wouldn't know where it was, but like unless you were like super fit and like almost like trained to navigate that area, you just wouldn't even be able to get there because it was that sort of rugged.
That was a weird one.
It's more crazy when they're just going like making monkey noises. Pretty much, it could just be a monkey.
Yeah.
But when it's like them actually almost speaking, that's when it's a bit weird.
That definitely sounds Japanese.
You can see why they call it the samurai Bigfoot.
Yeah, one of the strangest things I've heard that sounds real, you know. Like, this doesn't sound like a hoax. It sounds like.
Yeah, I think that like, as I said, the fact that that was just literally recorded on like a little cassette tape. So obviously that was shown like to people like back in the day, like in the 60s, And obviously it sounded exactly like it is today, so it's not like even like, you know, you couldn't say like, oh, over the years it's been like manipulated or anything like that. It's like they played that then.
That's a good thing with like tape. You can't really tamper with it too much, like in the way that you can now on like digital stuff and everything. The only thing that people could potentially say is that did you know, was that like the people that were just like on, you know, trying to make the hoax happen, just like doing weird noises and.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is as well, like, because I know that they, for like, in like the documentary I watched, I can't remember what it was called now, but they took like one person out to where this like happened to them, where they camped every year, but they like made the person promise that they wouldn't disclose the location. But like, you know, there was evidence of like where they used to camp and stuff, like, you know what I mean, like a really old sort of like where they used to have a log fire, like still evidence of that. So it was like they obviously went there. They definitely went there. So it's like, that's not in question or anything like that. As I said, you could maybe think that like...
Was someone else in on it? Like,
was somebody else in it and just making like weird noises and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just... there's something about it that to me seems more credible than other stuff. I'm not saying that like I believe in Bigfoot or anything like that. I just think that is a compelling story. That's it.
Yeah.
I just think it's compelling, really.
Yeah. I've been looking at the different lists of cryptids that they've all got.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how many different lake monsters there are.
I know that there's one is it North America called Champy?
Try and find that one. One called Caddy.
All right.
Maybe. We've got, Champ. Yeah. Literally here, I've seen about
is it
10.
Lake Champlain? I think it's this place called Lake Champlain in America.
The most interesting one I'm seeing here is in Ohio, Loveland. Oh, yeah. Right? It's called the Loveland Frog, which is apparently a humanoid frog.
Ah, yeah. I think I've heard about something like that.
That seems like quite an interesting.
The frog
humanoid frog.
Yeah.
That's a bit weird, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure there's where is it? Is it like New Orleans or West Virginia or something? There's like supposedly like reptilian men or something. Can you find anything about that?
I've got the story of the Loveland Frog up. Which basically is a legendary humanoid frog described as standing roughly 4 feet tall. Imagine seeing a 4 foot tall frog.
Like a weird frog
like Dobby.
Yeah. Weird little frog man.
So apparently it was reported by a police officer.
Right.
Yeah. That there was an animal consistent with descriptions of the frogman. After a purported sighting in 2016, the second officer called a news station to report that he had shot and killed the same creature some weeks after the 1972 incident and had identified it as a large iguana that went missing its tail.
Well, so that's like a right anticlimax. It was literally an iguana.
With no tail.
Yeah. And we're going to listen to a track now. When we come back, we're going to be talking about more spooky Halloween stuff. We're going to be talking about cryptids, serial killers, all of that good Halloween stuff. This is Wolf Moon by Typo Negative. Fittingly creepy for such an occasion. Whoa. You are listening to Pandora's Box on Aspen Waite Radio and also maybe our podcast on YouTube. Ooh. I'm your host as always this time of the week, Mr. Calum Waite, or is my name in fact Obadiah Pennywhistle. With me this afternoon in the studio we have Orb.
Hey, what's up? I'm Orb.
And can't remember your name, man.
Twangle.
That's it. Twangle.
Maybe I should be Daft Twangle. That's a bit more Halloween.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like how I said, like, give yourself a spooky name, and it was Twangle. The menacing Twangle.
Twangle.
Yeah. We were talking about cryptids at the moment. We're going to be covering like things like serial killers as well a little bit, and maybe even like horror movies as well. I think would be a cool thing to talk about, like maybe like our favorite horror movies individually. Be interested to like ask you guys what your favorite horror movies and stuff like that. But we were just talking about during these last couple of tracks the tale of the beast of Gevaudan. So this is a real tale apparently of essentially like a werewolf like creature that killed over 100 people in France between 1765.
So this is a true story.
It's a true story. It's 100% a true story. It's just what was the beast? The verdict's out on like what exactly killed these people. So some people think it was like an unusually large, unusually ferocious wolf. Some people think that it was like an actual werewolf. And some people think it was like a deranged serial killer. I remember like the original thing I heard about it, I remember them saying that like, and I thought this was the case. Maybe I'm mistaken. I thought that they said that eventually they killed and shot a man and it was like a man, but he was like ridiculously hairy and like completely beastly and like couldn't even talk, but was just like snarling like a wolf and growling and just like completely naked and was like attacking people with his teeth and stuff.
Like a hairy Terminator.
Yeah, like a weird hairy Terminator man. But yeah, I mean, I've been a little bit prone to be a little bit of that sometimes, I'd say. That's why I try not to drink every night.
Oh.
But yeah, the thing I've just been finding a second ago though, I can't find any evidence so much of that, but there are like some weird stuff. So they're saying, you know, basically, yeah, over 100 people were killed. A couple of people managed to get away and said that it was like almost like seemed like a large wolf, but there was like had characteristics about it that wasn't quite wolf-like, which is quite mysterious, isn't it? In itself, it's like, what does it look like exactly? Makes you want to sort of see yourself what it looked like.
Yeah.
Like when they say that, are they sort of implying that like maybe like a little bit more man-like or what? And they was basically saying about how basically the King of France own huntsman ended up tracking down like an unusually large wolf and killing it, and he had it like stuffed sent to like the King of France, and it was described as like a wolf yet not a wolf. So yeah, again, very, very strange and sort of ambiguous. The funny thing is, after that, the killings just continued. But I guess out of like not wanting to sort of feel embarrassed, the royalty of France at the time just literally just ignored the reports, because I guess to them it was like, oh no, you know, our good old man over here's taking care of the job, and it was like, no, people are still just being eaten in the middle of the night. So yeah, people were literally getting attacked like in the middle of the night, like ripped to shreds and stuff.
Almost makes me think, was it like a massive like mastiff dog or something? So like not like a wolf, but like almost like one of those huge.
Makes you think it would have had like rabies or something, either like a large wolf or like maybe like a large dog that had rabies. The only thing is, I think like obviously people of the day, like back in those days, it seems like a long time ago, but relatively it is fairly recent, if you know what I mean. It's only like a couple of 100 years ago. Like, people would have known what all sorts of different types of dogs look like. Do you know what I mean? To the point that I think that probably like, I don't know.
Just because Google wasn't about, they still know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dogs.
I mean, it could be the case just because of like hysteria and stuff. But I'd like to think that if it was like a mastiff, people would be like, "That's like this mastiff's gone mental." They wouldn't be like, "It's like a wolf."
Yeah,
but not.
not.
Do you know what I mean? It's a werewolf, man. That is a werewolf, and it's like just a mastiff. You know, something like that. Anyway, in the end, because people kept getting killed, what was his name? A bloke basically took it into his own hands, like a local hunter. What was it? The Marquis d'Apcher. He organised a hunt, and on June the 19th, one of the local hunters, a local man named Jean Chastel, shot what he described as a wolf on the slopes of Mount Mouchet. An autopsy of the animal revealed human remains inside its stomach, and the animal was reported to have non-wolf-like characteristics, as described by the witnesses. The attacks ended, but while it was assumed that the beast Chastel bagged was the beast, doubts remained that it was indeed a wolf. So I don't know, just a cool tale, anyway. A cool tale, definitely. Regardless. Any other cryptids you guys want to talk about at all?
Not necessarily a cryptid. I found out earlier, the Sirenhead I was talking about, obviously that's different. That's more like, what would you call it? Internet?
I don't know. Like, what's the way that you would talk about it? There is a phrase for it, isn't it? I'm struggling to think of what you would call it. I guess like with like the cryptids and stuff, these are like animals that could or could not exist, and then either confirmed. There's like, I guess what you would call like some evidence for them in terms of like sightings, things like that. Maybe the odd little like hair sample,
a little bit urban legendy.
Yeah, but like not solid proof. So it's like the verdict's out on them. Whereas I think that what you're talking about, like urban legends. Yeah, you know, or like, you know, like maybe they're like they start off as stories, and then for some reason they grab the public so much. Yeah, that it's almost like they take life, and then it's almost like. You might even start hearing reports that people think that they might have seen them. Yeah. These creatures. Yeah. I think it's definitely things like that with things like Slenderman. Yeah. You know? Do
you know the story of Slenderman?
I don't. Not really. No. I know that a girl killed her friend.
Yeah. So I've got that up now. So 2 12-year-old girls, from Wisconsin, stabbed a 3-year-old girl nearly to death. The girls called their plot "Stabby Stab Stab." And it was intended as a sacrifice to Slenderman.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So apparently the girls believed that Slenderman would appear to them if they killed in his name, they also believed that he had threatened them and their family and could read their minds. Children have always had a fanciful flights of imagination. These claims sound much like the Salem witch hunts of the 1690s. Salem witch hunt, of the 1690s, when young girls accused each other of riding with the devil.
I think that's crazy about that is they're like, oh yeah, if we sacrifice this little girl, that Slenderman's going to appear to us. Like, why would anybody want that to happen?
Do you know what I think's even more terrifying? That it's not one person, it's two girls. Like, they've both had the same wavelength of being like, all right, we need to... You know, if someone came up to you and were like, all right, Slenderman told me to do this with you, you'd be like, what?
Yeah, you'd be like, mate, where did you become a complete nutbar?
Yeah.
You know?
But these two girls are both so convinced of the same thing that they went through with it. That's crazy.
It reminds me a little bit of, obviously, there's that famous case in Britain. Is it like Terry Venables and something? Basically, it was like those two. I think they were about 12 years old as well. They like kidnapped a little boy from like a shopping centre in England. I can't remember where it was, and they murdered him. Horrible stuff, brutal stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it's more like some weird game that they both had, and they were saying about Slenderman. But it's almost like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can get twisted.
The thing that's even weirder about that, though, isn't it? Than like I said, there's the grotesque, just murder aspect of it, which is like disturbing enough as it is. But then the fact that they were almost like saying, these two 12-year-old girls, you think of a 12-year-old girl in your head, and I think of like, that's about as pure a human being as you could find.
What's so weird though as well is like how sometimes kids, before they have that, you know, like kids can do like horrible things, like you know, nature or nurture, like, you know, depending on how you believe, but like it is weird. There's almost not, there's not sometimes a filter like we would think there is a filter now. Do you know what I mean? With stuff like, you know, I remember I cut up fish like when I was a kid. I got some out of a stream and literally like cut them up when I was probably about like 10 or 11 or something.
Well, it's all coming out now.
I would never do that now.
No,
like, do you know what I mean? It's so weird,
guy.
but I think sometimes, you know, kids cannot really understand the implications of what they're doing.
I guess like there's who you are, like naturally, like who you are in your core. And then there's like the part of you that over the years you become more refined. You think in a very sort of philosophical way about the world and about yourself. Try and look at yourself in the mirror. Try and look at the world like in an honest view. Like, you know, how should I live my life? How is the correct way to be? And as you sort of grow thinking like that, like every year that goes by, you become like a wiser, more mature version of yourself. And sort of like know how to be and know how to act.
Sometimes as a kid you don't know that. So
much. Exactly, as you said. So I like
my sister grabbed the we had a cockatiel, a little bird, and I used to love that bird. It used to come and sit up on your shoulder and stuff like that. And Sherelle, like once when she was about 3. She like grabbed the bird by the head and just started like, you know, just kind of like flinging it around, but like almost not knowing what she was doing.
All of the Armstrong's dark secrets are coming out.
But it's so weird, you know. It's like she obviously, but you know, Sherelle, like she is now. Or you see like little kids with like dogs and cats, and I always get a bit nervous because I've seen like kids like grab the cat's tail or something and just pull it. Like, you know?
So like my daughter's like that a little bit with our cat. So I've got a cat and a 19-month-old girl. Little girl, and it's like she is like, you know, I have to sort of like tell her off a little bit because she almost
as aware.
She treats him almost like he's a toy, and I'm like, no, this is like a living creature. Like you need to treat him with respect. Like I don't chase Mr. Scraggles. That's his name. Shout out Mr. Scraggles, love you, buddy. Like I don't chase Mr. Scraggles around the house like screaming at him and like grabbing him, which is what she does. Like if he did, he wouldn't live here. Like, you know, and he would literally just run off into the night, and I wouldn't blame him. Like I obviously explained to her, and she's just starting to understand now, like, look, you need to be nice to him and caring to him, otherwise he's not going to like you, you know? And like at some stage, he is just going to scratch you, you know, like he's going to run away. If you want him to come to you and you want him to love you, you need to be like nurturing and nice to him. She obviously just doesn't understand that, so she gets so excited in his presence, she literally like screams and chases him. And then sort of like, she's not like violent towards him, but she just sort of like tries to like pat him. Almost like overly excitedly. Do you know what I mean? It's like
that's it. Like kids don't seem to know like boundaries sometimes, etiquette. Like where the boundaries lie. It's like you've got to learn that through the knocks of life.
It's almost like etiquette, isn't it? Like social etiquette almost. Where even if it's with an animal, it's like there's certain things you do and don't do. Like if it's any sort of living creature, if you like hit it or scream in its face, it's either going to be scared or it's going to attack you. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think a lot of like serial killers and stuff, a lot of them start off with like hurting animals or killing animals.
Yeah,
which is really sad, obviously. But
wait a minute. We're gonna leave it on that little note a second. We're gonna listen to a track. When we come back, leave it on that, which is really sad. Like serial killers start killing animals. This is Blue Oyster Cult with "Don't Fear the Reaper." Stick around. We're gonna get back into the conversation after this. That was Bark at the Moon by Ozzy Osbourne. Fitting, considering we were talking about a werewolfy tale earlier on. You're listening to Pandora's Box on Aspen Waite Radio. Thanks for chilling with us this afternoon. And thanks if you're chilling with us on YouTube, watching our sexy visages.
Saucy faces.
Hey there. On the tubes. So, yeah, we're talking about all sorts of like spooky stuff and cryptids and serial killers and stuff today on Pandora's Box, as is only fitting considering it's Halloween on Sunday. There we go. It's like in-house sound effect there.
That's quite a good one, actually.
Thanks, man. Thanks. You should hear my trumpet. But
oh, there you go. There it is.
But you were saying before we just listened to those last couple of tracks, which was "Bark at the Moon" by Ozzy Osbourne, and then "Don't Fear the Reaper" before that, Blue Oyster Cult. But how often serial killers like Drew, apparently over here, start off life by mutilating animals and killing animals before they move on to humans. Secret's out now, man. Secret's out.
To give that context, I almost think you almost wonder, like for a lot of kids that would do that, maybe the ones that almost go on to pursue crime and killing and stuff, if they learn, I don't feel anything from this, I don't see the responsibility of my action, and maybe that's like a point,
like no empathy
in their brain. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's strange, isn't it? I think that's obviously what makes a psychopath, essentially, isn't it? It's like most people, it's like, we're all capable of doing bad things, and we all act sometimes in a way that probably we feel like lets ourselves down a little bit, because we're all human. We all make mistakes. But I think most of us, we feel bad about it. If we do something that we know we're not proud of, you feel bad about it, and you feel like you want to make amends for it, and you think, I'd never want to do that again.
Yeah, completely.
And you want to apologise, and you want to instantly make up for that. Whereas obviously it's like, I guess what makes a psychopath and what could potentially make like a serial killer is doing quote unquote bad things.
And not feeling anything,
not caring
about it. Yeah.
Not only not caring, but probably thinking you're in the right.
Yeah, it can be
or
like
getting
a power
pleasure.
thing for a lot of people, can't it? Where they almost want to be above a certain entity, whether it be animals or humans, and I guess if they get a endorphin kick from that, then that's their brain telling them to pursue it. Which is quite sad.
I know with like the animal example, like a famous example of that is like Jeffrey Dahmer. Have you heard of Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yeah.
So like he started off by like mutilating animals. I think it started off, I think he even talked about it, because one of the interesting things about obviously serial killers that are locked up behind bars is obviously lots of like criminal psychologists and stuff like interview them.
Yeah.
And it's actually fascinating getting like a weird insight into the minds of just these like messed up people, really.
Yeah, you can watch some things on YouTube that go like deep into it, don't they?
Yeah.
And they show you like about when killers like pretend that they're like psychotic, or like they pretend that they've got a screw loose.
Yeah.
And then it's like actual when someone actually is like that, it's completely different. They're not acting like anything.
Yeah, so
they're
there's
just like almost like very like what you're saying, like no.
I know that
I did this.
Yeah,
and I did that.
I know that we watched the same video because we were talking about it. So there was like a video of a guy who, to basically get off easy on a sentence, was trying to act like he was like psychotic,
right,
mentally ill.
But as a result, he was like hamming it up, and he was like rocking back and forth in his chair, and he was like deliberately looking really beady-eyed.
He didn't realise it was getting videoed as well, though. So like when the cop went out of the room, he was like go normal again,
just like chilling, looking around.
Yeah.
And then when they come back in the room, like, but it's like they were saying like. And then they were comparing that, so they showed that video, and then after that showed an actual interview with somebody that, by clinical psychologists, have actually been, what's the word I'm looking for?
Deemed clinically insane.
Yeah, deemed like actually and like it's much more like casual than that. It's not like they're rocking, looking forth, and they got this crazy look in their eye.
It's just like matter of fact.
They're talking about like murder and like rape and like playing with like making trophies that have like dead people's bodies.
Right.
Like. You would talk about like pop into Sainsbury's to grab some milk. You know, it's just like, yeah, and then I killed them, and then I tore open their innards, and I like played with their intestines, and then I made a lamp out of their skin, you know, and it's like, what the hell, man? like what the hell is going on, you know? Yeah. But talking about that, have either of you two ever heard of Ed Gein?
No.
So he's one of the most like prolific and like sinister like serial killers of all time, and he was like who inspired the tale of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay.
You know how like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, like Leatherface like wears like a mask made of like his victims, human faces. So Ed Gein didn't do that exactly, or at least I'm aware, not that I'm aware of. But when he was finally caught and they went to his house, like most of the furniture in his house, including, for example, like his bed frame, like lamps in his house and everything, were all made from like body parts of his victims. So he'd made like a bed frame from like the bone of his victims, and then he had like a lampshade, and like the shade, like the what do you call it? Like the head of the lamp or whatever.
Yeah, the lampshade.
Yeah, the lamp. Yeah, is that what it is? Actually, the lampshade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was like made out of human skin.
Whoa.
And he had like book bindings that he'd made from human skin, and he had like jars just like on the shelves, and it was like.
I suppose it's better than just rotting in the ground.
Mate, you want to be careful today. There would be a criminal psychologist coming over to your house, man, and Sherelle's. But yeah, there was like jars with like weird body parts just on the wall. Like, this is grotesque. So I hope you've eaten your dinner out there, guys. But it was. I remember there was just like a uterus. He just had like a woman's uterus in a jar, and it was just like on his shelf in his living room and stuff like that.
Sounds like a bit of a biologist to me.
And like a and like just like proper, mate, I hate this because I love cats, but just like dead cats also in jars on the wall and stuff, like just proper messed up. And it's like you can see a picture of him, and he looks crazy. Like you can look at the picture.
That, like,
of him,
that crazy artist that like Josh has spoke to me about him before. He had like a an exhibit up in London like recently,
right? And
it's this guy who's like obsessed with like anatomy and like the human body, and he like literally like puts like people and like bodies like in things and like cuts them in half so you can see like every layer of everything. And
I have heard that. That's not a modern artist, is it?
It's this guy who's still alive, yeah.
Oh, is
and,
it?
And he does all this like really, I can't remember what his name is.
How does he even legally go about that? Like, how do you one day say like, oh, I want to make some art?
So people love his art so much that they donate their dead bodies to him. When they're alive, they say, I want to donate my body to that cause of that, and like mortuaries and stuff.
Well,
like
I guess like you could think. I can see the appeal of that in a way. Like you think like that's almost like a way of immortalizing yourself, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Like, people are going to go to this exhibit and just see me forever if I'm like is it formaldehyde?
Yeah,
you know, like is it like it's like that sort of liquid where it's like it stops things from rotting.
Right. Yeah.
So you could keep something in formaldehyde and it just wouldn't rot. So I know they do that with some like very rare species and stuff. Like and they keep in museums, so they keep them in like a tank of formaldehyde so that people will be able to see it for like hundreds of years essentially.
I think the guy, he's called Gunther von Hagens.
That's his name. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't be a guy called like Barry Clark, would it? I am Gunther von Hagenstaff, and I make art out of people's bodies. Yeah. I think that's a bit weird.
It does look quite cool.
Does it?
I'm looking at it now. It does look quite cool.
Right, look it up, guys. If you're listening to this, look it up on the Googs, and tell us what you think of his art. I'll have to check it out myself. I'm not convinced. I don't know.
It's so weird, but it's proper like this study of an anatomy. So like like almost like taking our skin off.
To be fair, like obviously we have a lot to thank. Like if like physicians, doctors, surgeons didn't dissect human bodies over the years, crazy man, didn't like dissect and look at the human anatomy over the thousands of years prior to where we are now, like we wouldn't know how to treat diseases. Well, not diseases. Like we wouldn't know how to do
surgeons.
We wouldn't know how to do heart surgery.
It's like insane, isn't it? Like
removing brain tumors, doing open heart surgery. Transplants. Even things like removing your, like appendicitis is quite common, isn't it? Yeah. People who have their burst appendix.
You need to have your appendix removed. I'm too squeamish for that stuff. Like actually, kind of.
I actually really respect. I have a lot of respect for like surgeons and doctors. Not only because, let's face it, it's a very intellectual pursuit. Like you need to be very intelligent to be a surgeon or a doctor. especially certain types of doctors, as I said, like if you're like a brain surgeon, not only the intelligence do you have to like know all the areas of the brain and like know how to go about it in a way that you're not going to like turn your patient into a carrot, but like to know how to successfully operate on, say, like a brain tumor or something, how to open up a skull, and then to know how to do it, and then to go about that in a calm way with a steady hand, with like the gore and everything that's involved. I've a lot of respect. Like, because let's face it, right? Say you had to choose between that, and let's face it, not all your patients are going to survive. So sometimes you're going to have to tell people's husbands, wives, children, mothers that your patients died, right? So imagine choosing between that, high stress lifestyle, lots of blood and gore, nerves on end, or like a postman. Yeah. Like most people are just going to want to be a postman, walking around door to door. Yeah, got letters, boom. Like
it's the responsibility of it as well, isn't it? Like you said, like having the responsibility to have this person's life in your care.
Yeah,
and knowing that you're responsible if anything goes wrong, but still having the confidence to be like, if anyone can do this, it's me.
I got a lot of respect for that.
Yeah,
I got a lot of respect for that. Shout out to all these doctors and surgeons out there. I think it's, like sometimes get a little bit of a bad rap as well, because I think sometimes, not everyone, but like sometimes you hear like people focusing more on like the service on the NHS, or like this was like so bad, or like it took me like 3 months to get an appointment here and that, and it's just like, man, it's like, well, think about it this way, like, do you want to learn and study how to become a doctor and become a doctor? Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we need to respect the ones that do. I mean, we could always do with more of them, but it's like, it's easier said than done,
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, and like you said, Nathaniel, as well, like the responsibility that you have of another person's life, like, and how long it takes to learn that craft. It's just like crazy.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because I remember hearing that like a lot of doctors like drink and smoke chronically. Like pretty much like, but it's like their nerves are always so shot. Yeah, and it's like that's the way of handling your stress.
The closest I've ever got to it, like someone knowing being at hospital and stuff, is a guy I know who works on like the casualty ward, and he was talking about it. He was a nurse on the ward, so he'd help the doctors with like in these situations. And you just he said you just had to turn off from it almost, like you had to turn off emotions. Kind of like what we were saying about earlier about how humans can sometimes, they're obviously not psychopaths, but they do learn how to like turn off the emotional thing, and it is more like a job. Like
it's like mental conditioning.
Yeah, it's what we were talking about. But you have to, because if you didn't do that, you'd be totally overwhelmed by what was actually happening.
Same thing for like armed forces and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like if you're a first responder, or you say you're in the military and you're like a frontline unit guy, it's like, or gal, like, if you're going to turn up on the scene and there's like severed hands around, right? There's two ways of looking at it. It's just a hand. You got to look at it as like it's just a hand. If you start looking at it as like, oh my god, imagine if that was my hand. Imagine if that was my girlfriend's hand. Like then you start going down this weird like route in your head that's like just will freak you out.
It's like every time you do the dishes and you got all of those beans and that horrible onions and everything just in the sink, and then you've just got to touch it and grab it all and just put it in the bin. If you look at that. If you get so weirded out by that, you'll spend an hour just standing there, or you can just grab the onion and you
just grab it. Just grab the freaking beans.
And you can just chuck it in the bin.
Just grab the freaking. I have to say, man, I've never had that much of a dilemma with onion.
I do. Every time I do the dishes, I just I hate it when it gets all caught up in the sink, all the food.
I remember though, like. What you're talking about, mental conditioning, and obviously I'm not comparing this because it's not the same, but I do think it's like this is a good example. This is a bit, I'd say probably a little bit better than Drew's beans analogy. I remember like a little while ago, and obviously this is just something that you have to sort of step up and do sometimes, because if I don't do it,
spider.
Then either no. I love how like out of context it was just spider. No, not spider. But it's like I remember, and this has happened like a couple of times. Like Mr. Scraggles again. He's been brought up a lot today. Shout out Mr. Scraggles again. He's like, there's been times where he's bought like rodents back, and he's obviously like damaged them in a way that they're maimed. They're not. You can't. They're not going to recover. But they're not dead. So it's like in that situation, what can you? If you can tell it's alive, but it can only move its like front two arms, and it's essentially paralyzed. Like, I don't want to leave it there to suffer. So there's been, I've like grabbed my boot.
Humane thing to do.
Yeah, I've grabbed my boot and I've ended its misery. I don't enjoy it. It's not a fun thing to do, and it's not for the squeamish. It's not for like sit on the screen. Oh, I'm so sorry, everyone. What are we talking about today?
This is quite an X-rated.
It is. I feel like I hope that people strong stomach. It is Halloween
on YouTube. I'm gonna have to put not for kids.
It's coming up for Halloween, guys. All right. So we're getting grotesque and spooky here today, but it's like, it's a brutal thing to do. But it's like, I don't want my missus to have to do that. Because I don't want her to have to put up with, to have to deal with doing that, and I don't want to leave it to suffer. So it's like I'm stepping up to do that. So that's like, obviously I'm not comparing that to say being a first-time responder, because when it's humans, that's like a whole nother kettle of fish.
But it's that thing of having to turn off some like emotions or whatever to actually do something. I can't
look at it in a way of like me as a compassionate human being. I need to look at it in a way of like, this is what needs to be done.
Get the job done.
I wonder if like the people that need to do surgeons and everything, I wonder if they look at it from an aspect of like, all right, switch off. This isn't like, obviously it is a human, but be like, all right, I'm not going to think about this person's life. I'm just going to do my job.
I remember hearing about brain surgeons before. Like, they'll look at it almost like they're doing like a jigsaw puzzle or something.
Yeah.
So they've detached themselves from that being a human being, and they've probably conditioned themselves to do that. A little bit like what we were saying about. I think it's very similar to say if you were in like the special forces or like frontline infantry. It's like, you can't look at it like every person I shoot, they might have a family. You've got to think of it as it's almost like you're playing a video game, and it's just like, this is your objective.
I've spoken to soldiers that have actually like said that as well.
Yeah, this is your objective. That
freaked me out.
It's you or them. You're going to win or you're going to lose. Like this, do you want your missus and your kid to find out that daddy's not coming home, or do you want to just complete your objective?
Yeah.
Do you want to? If you fail in your task or you hesitate, then the men either side of you, they might die.
It's so crazy as well, because you've just got to think, like, if everyone had that same look of going, oh, I'm not going to shoot this because it's a person, then there wouldn't be the fighting, or there would, but it would be like with robots or something.
Yeah.
But because no one can trust the other person to think that, then it's almost like a split or steal on golden balls or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
you can't trust the other person, so you got to steal. Gotta take someone else's life, which is
the world
really
can
crazy.
be a brutal place.
I have to say that I think there's like almost like two ways looking at it. I think some people are almost like, I think everyone at their core, obviously apart from like people like psychopaths that we're talking about, is like anti-war, for example. Because I think, what sort of sicko is pro-war? But I think we need to understand and accept sometimes, for example, in history, there's plenty of examples in history, that like war sometimes is the necessary thing to do, for example. And in that instance, it's not actually like, it's not to be frowned upon, the people that are stepping up to handle this war. In fact, we should give them their utmost respect, because, as I said, to be like a compassionate human being, but to have the mental strength and the conditioning to do what you have to do anyway is extremely admirable, because it's actually far more easy to just throw your gun on the ground and think, what the hell am I doing, and just leave. That's the easy thing to do, to stay and do it, because you know that in the grand scheme of things it's the better thing to do. Whether it's like, I don't know, well, like look at World War II, for example. If the Nazis had won, all of the Jews in the world would have been exterminated. They would have probably moved on to this. I think they were planning and already had sort of like, we're exterminating Slavic people as well. So like, Polish people, etc.
Gypsies as well.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if the Nazis had won the war, the world would have been a far worse place than it is today. So it's like, it was necessary. It's not good that the amount of people that died. If every country just surrendered to the Nazis, then like, technically, I'm sure that more British people, there were entire probably lineages and families of British people and lots of other countries of people that were wiped out. But
then, like you say, what about the Jews and stuff that would be completely exterminated? Like,
there'd be no Jews left on the planet. For example, like the idea that like it would have been acceptable, or that people would have like rolled over and just let entire ethnic groups be wiped off the face of the earth because of some essentially madman's ideology is just not acceptable.
It's
just not acceptable.
It's so horrible that like that is though that is when war like needs to happen. Is when these extremist views like come into place. Like it's just crazy that needs to happen. Do you know what I mean? Like that actually does happen, because that you know, I don't get that. It's just like crazy.
Yeah, it's awful, isn't it? And I think, you know, to everybody, and that's why I think it's really important. Like I think, like, you know, it's like annoyed me a little bit the last couple of years. You know, like some people are almost like, have you heard a little bit of the controversy with like poppies the last couple of years?
No.
Poppies?
Yeah, you know, obviously like people wear like poppies.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff to like respect like all the people that have like fallen during the war. Like there's been a little bit of controversy the last couple of years, and like I think this is like madness, man. I think this is so crazy. But like there is like certain groups of people, and I think they're probably coming from a good place, probably. But I think it's just probably like complete naivety and probably like ignorance. But like some people are trying to say that it's almost like encouraging war or glorifying war if you're wearing a poppy. Have you guys heard of that?
That's outrageous.
But it's like, to me, I'm like, that is obviously not what it's about.
Yeah.
Like, so
it's to honour the fallen that gave their lives.
Yeah. Like, so like my great uncle Bill, my granddad's older brother, he actually served at D-Day, and he like. You know, he said about how like, you know, he had like literally friends that he remembers seeing just like getting like blown into pieces that day. Right. When they were like storming, like, you know, imagine 1 minute you're going on the landing craft from the ship and you're like chatting like we're chatting now, and then imagine if literally 5 minutes later we were looking at each other and then like a mortar shell went off and we saw each other just go like, not dead even, just like chunks of flesh like falling on you and that, and it was like you just knew it's like. That's crazy. Like you're not glorifying war by wearing a poppy. You're just respecting the fact, as I said, that people gave their lives. Yeah. You know, nobody's trying to glorify war. In fact, it's almost the opposite of that. You know, it's like it's the sacrifice of people that have literally given their lives so that we can be having this conversation right now. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Yeah. Got a lot of respect for that though. Anyway, I don't know how we got into a chat really about that, considering it's supposed to be like gruesome.
It's funny. Well, we've gone from serial killers and
to surgeons
stuff to surgeons and to army men.
What was it? Drew and his beans. Me and my mouse. Yeah, I'm just trying to think like things like serial killers, though, they are fascinating, aren't they? As I said, there was Ed Gein, who's like the guy that I know that he didn't even just like kill people. In fact, actually, I think in Ed Gein's defense, if you can even give him a defense, I don't think he killed that many people, but he was like really grotesque in terms of like he would go to his local cemetery, dig up bodies, and then like he would take the dead bodies home and then just make weird ornaments out of them. But apparently like the majority of the stuff in his house was like made from human remains. Imagine how creepy it would have been. Imagine just being like some local police officer like, yep, I'm going to sign up for the police force. Imagine it's like your first day on the job or something, and it's like you get sent with like your superior to this house, and you walk in. It's like something actually from a horror movie. Door just creeps open, and there's just human remains everywhere, like bed made of bones, and
it's weird when you think of our perspective and things and that though. Like we've got like we can do that with animals like so easily because we think of it in a different way, and obviously it is very different to like humans. But do you know what I mean? Like bones of like. That can be, you can see it as like very interesting, you know, like bones of animals and like kind of like do you know what I mean? Like you can make ornaments or like knives out of like bones and stuff. But
I still think people would think it was creepy if you had like a bed made out of bones though. And then I think when you add on to the fact that it's human bones and that it's like
double creepy
and it's the way you've got it.
Yeah.
As you said, it's like that guy with the art. It's the reason it's socially acceptable is because it's out in the open and people are voluntarily donating their bodies. But when you've got some weird local creepy guy who's living alone in this like big weird house
and stealing grandma's body from
in the
grave.
Middle of the night, he's like going to the cemetery and digging up corpses. Like that's so grim and dark. Like that is so grim and dark. And then taking them home and doing God knows what to them. Like that's just freaking bizarre, man. You know,
bizarro.
And then obviously you got probably the most famous serial killer, wouldn't you say, Ted Bundy?
Yeah.
Who did either of you guys watch that thing on Netflix about Ted Bundy?
I didn't know.
No. Well, it was just quite interesting, you know, just like how obviously he was supposedly like a real charming guy. Yeah. And like, you know, people wouldn't say like, you know, like he had no problem getting a girlfriend. He was like an intellectual guy. He was like quite intelligent and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's like there was
Just
something
doing some
inside
weird
of him that just felt the need to kill.
Yeah.
So he would.
Sounds like Dexter.
Yeah. Or like You. Have you guys seen You on?
Oh, I thought you meant me.
No, not You. Have you seen?
I've seen the first episode.
Mate, it's really good. I really like it. I've actually just finished watching season 3. I just want to say as well, just like this is a good opportunity because I was thinking it. For anybody out there that's seen You, in the 3rd season, just want to give a shout out to the actress that plays Love. Weird name, I know. There's a woman and there's a character in You called Love. That's her name. But the actress that plays her acting is so phenomenal. Like the last couple of episodes, I remember I was like watching it, and every now and again it would just like hit me. I was like, this woman's acting, whoever the name, I don't know what the actress's name is, but her acting is like so good. Like she deserves to go on to like so many bright and big things. Like it was like as good an acting as you can find.
In what way do you mean, man?
Like she was in like some very emotionally charged scenes.
Okay, yeah.
And it was just amazing acting. Like it was like top tier acting. You know, you think of like the best actors you can think of, whether it's like Christian Bale or I don't know, I'm struggling to think, but you know, just like there are some actors that can just pull off anything and they do it so believably. Like the way that she was acting on screen, I was like, oh my God, man, it's like I was watching like a real life. It was like I was watching a person just actually in this dilemma. It wasn't like I was watching somebody acting.
You got totally like immersed.
And I was just like, man, that's insane, because it's almost like I can imagine it was probably actually quite emotional for her to even go through that.
Victoria Pedretti.
Oh yeah, shout out Victoria Pedretti. Yeah, such good acting. And we're going to listen to a couple of tracks now. When we come back, we'll carry on talking about the macabre. All things of the macabre. Have a nice little chat about some horror movies, I reckon. Horror movies that you guys like, horror movies that I like, and things that maybe had horror movies that had an impact on you. This is actually me and Orb.
Ooh.
This is The Demon Lover. This is like an old folk story about a woman who leaves her husband for a man that, unbeknownst to her, is the devil. And then it's like a little tale, basically, of like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. She ends up meeting an unfortunate end. So yeah, listen to the lyrics of this track, and you know, don't leave the good stuff in your life for fanciful tales of riches and a finer life, because it might just be the devil that is tempting you. That was Werewolf's Eyes by Birchbook. Love that. It's a tale about a woman who, unbeknownst to her, falls in love with a werewolf, and then it's like the tale develops, so it's like back and forth. So it's almost like some bits are from the woman's point of view, going on about how it's like nighttime, but she doesn't know where her lover's gone, and then there's like other bits from like the werewolf's perspective, and at the end it's like quite creepy, almost like making it it's like he's like taking her to his lair, and he's like, she knows he's a werewolf now, but it's like, don't worry, we'll be together forever. But it's like cool because it's like quite romantic, but it's also quite creepy,
right?
Do you know what I mean? It's actually quite a beautiful track, but it's like beautiful in quite a dark way.
I love how the old folk tales, how they are actually like folk tales, the tunes, aren't they?
Yeah, and also I think obviously when a lot of these tales were written, life was probably more dark and brutal in general. Obviously life expectancy was a lot lower. Capital punishment was still a thing. It would have been much easier for people to get away with murder. Do you know what I mean? Things like that, like savage diseases and stuff like that weren't so treatable, and like religion was a lot more manic, so it's like, you know, people could be killed for like practicing witchcraft and things like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like life in general was probably a bit darker and bleaker. So I think that's reflected in some of the folk music of the time. But I think it's interesting. It's almost just like an interesting case study, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really good way of capturing a moment in time as well. Like you say, like that's almost giving you an insight into what the lives of people would be like then, kind of what they were talking about and stuff. Yeah,
definitely. And I like the fact that it's like they're like moral tales, because obviously back in you know, obviously nowadays, you know, we have like public schools. You know, like it's very, very rare nowadays that somebody can't read or write.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're brought up in a system more, on the whole, that encourages like ways to be, like morals and etiquette, things like that. Whereas if you grew up 500 years ago, most people couldn't read or write unless you were like of a higher standing. So you couldn't like read necessarily like, you know, books on philosophy or like stories that maybe would make you reflect on yourself or life. You'd be a lot more like of a bare bones human,
base
so to speak.
Instincts and stuff.
So I think all of these tales were a lot more like as I said about that one that we did earlier on, like the Demon Lover, like that's an old folk song that was written about 400 years ago at least, and it's like it's a moral story, isn't it? As I said, it's all about like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Like, stick by the people that do good by you. Don't like leave them for like the idea of like this like amazing life, because you're probably, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah.
So you'll shoot yourself in the foot, and you're doing wrong by the people that have got you to where you are today. So
Tales around the campfire, like everything was always word of mouth. If you couldn't write or read, a lot of your history and things were all in kind of word of mouth and tales and stories.
All those old Brothers Grimm like tales, all the ones that like the Disney movies are based on. I said they're all stories really on almost like, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, it's like almost like telling you how to be, isn't it? Telling you how to live your 100%.
Life. Like majority of the stories you'll read, even like the Bible, it's all based off morals
and like old Greek myths and stuff like that.
Yeah, completely. Anything you read, well, not anything, but majority of the stuff you read,
I think more like older stuff. Yeah, like nowadays, I mean, there is a lot of morals to the story, but I mean, if you watch like,
it's a lot of just entertainment.
Yeah,
as well.
If you watch like The Terminator, there's not really a moral to the story. I mean, actually, there probably is.
Yeah.
Don't let AI, maybe like be cautious of AI.
Yeah.
Maybe not like Celebrity Big Brother or something.
Yeah. Like a lot of it's almost just pure entertainment. Yeah. So it's like, but those old school sort of like morals. It's interesting, isn't it? Anyway, I guess like, considering this is like the Halloween Pandora's box, it'd be quite cool to talk about like horror movies that you guys think are good and like horror movies that you like. Have we talked about horror movies before a little bit?
We taled about movies before, but not necessarily. And like we said about like you were into your horror movies.
I remember you were going on about Scream actually.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say is like your like favorite horror movie, Nathaniel? I mean, sorry.
I weirdly haven't watched that.
Was it Jangle?
Tangle. Darth Tangle.
Sorry, Darth Tangle.
Yes. I weirdly haven't watched
Twango. Darth Twango. Darth Twango. That's it.
That's the one. I haven't actually watched that many horror movies, to be completely honest. I remember.
Is that like a conscious decision? Do you not like them?
No, I do actually quite like them. I've just never. I don't know. The people around me now don't really like them.
Well, like your girlfriend and that.
Yeah.
She's not like a fan. She doesn't like.
She'll watch them. She's probably watched more than me. She's watched like Hereditary, everything like that. But I don't know. I just never really get to that point.
Do you want to hear something weird?
Oh, always.
So I had an ex-girlfriend, and she said she used to be obsessed with horror movies.
Yeah.
And then weird stuff started happening, like where she said she watched that many horror movies that like she actually started seeing stuff and she just had to stop, but she got obsessed with them in university apparently and would just like watch them all the time. And then she said it started changing her like reality, and she started like actually seeing like ghosts and that, and she just had to stop. Weird.
I think that just shows like the power of psychology, doesn't
it? Yeah. But I would say, one of my favourite horror movies, because I haven't seen loads of horror movies. I was like never like really into them, but I loved it when like all the Paranormal Activities came out, and it was almost like that real lifey thing that they gave because I thought when I first watched it that it was actually like, and I loved the thought of supernatural stuff and actual like real ghosts and how that would become enacted in your life.
I've only seen the first one, but I did actually really enjoy the first Paranormal Activity movie. And I went to go see it in the cinema. And it definitely did freak me out. Yeah. And when I see the first one, the thing that always like stuck by me, spoiler alert, is, do you remember that bit? I can't remember if it's like talcum powder they put down or flour. Because they hear footsteps in the night. They put down either like flour or talcum powder, some sort of white powder substance on the floor on the landing. And then in the morning, there's like footprints, but it's like, the footprints are like creepy, man.
Yeah.
They're not like humanoid footprints. They look almost like, I don't know what you'd imagine, almost like a bit like reptilian or something. I don't know, but just they're like freaky. Almost, I remember I think off the top of my head, it was almost like three almost like pointed, almost like claws. It looked like. I remember that for some reason that freaked me out. That I just thought like that is creepy, man. Because the whole thing wasn't like a ghost, was it? It was like a demon. And to me, that's so much darker. Scary enough being like haunted by a ghost. If it is real or whatever, like.
And I love like documentaries of like almost like real stuff. Like I can't remember what it was called. There was this old BBC documentary that was about this like haunted house, and it was like this guy like would haunt it and everything. These like TV show went around there, or like, you know, people with film equipment and everything, and like weird stuff would happen in his house, and like the little girl would actually, like, this thing would like talk through her, like,
that's not the one that we saw.
We might.
Oh, what's it called? The Enfield Haunting.
Yes,
that was good.
That's good.
That was really good. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Man, you need to see that.
So it's that more like real, like ghost.
Now it's based on a real story, isn't it? It's based on a true story. I think it was somewhere up north. I want to say it was somewhere up north, and it was just like a seemingly quite normal looking house. It wasn't like it was like this old manor house or anything. It was just like a semi-detached house on the corner.
Yeah.
But that's a good movie. So it's like there's a movie, and but it's based on a true story.
Oh, so I'm talking actually, like, there's a BBC documentary.
There's a documentary about it as well, isn't it? I think we might have seen it together, like watch the movie and then watch the documentary.
Yeah.
But I remember because I'd seen the movie like a few years before, and I remember telling you about how good it was, and I remember we watched it, and it was like, it is so good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember I'd only seen it once as well. I'd like forgotten enough about it that I enjoyed it just as much the second time, and we were all just like, whoa. But stuff like that is fascinating. God knows, who knows if things like that are real. I don't know. But so is that the movie? Is that like the horror movie you think that's sort of like stuck by you the most?
Yeah, because I can't really think of like things like Candyman and stuff. That was like real freaky. But I never Freddy Krueger and that. I never really watched them until I was a bit older. I
never really found Freddy Krueger that scary. I think. Don't get me wrong. I think the idea of something coming for you in your sleep is like freaky. Pardon me. Is because I think that, like, obviously we all have to go to sleep. And I think that the idea that, like, I guess, like, what is, like, of solace to, like, a lot of people is, like, if you were getting chased by something that was a danger to you, as long as you got away and you went to your home, which is, like, your safe space, like, once you're in there, then you're okay. Sort of that thing, But the idea that you could be in your safe space, you could be at home in, like, your safest of safe spaces, which is, like, your bed and your bedroom, your, like, ultimate sanctum, and that you could fall asleep and then that something would come for you in your sleep, but that, like, it could, like, kill you in the real world. That's quite a terrifying thought. But even with that said, I just never really found them that scary, like Freddy Krueger or anything like that. I remember I used to have this thing about masks when I was little.
Yeah, so talking about masks, I was actually gonna bring this up. A lot of things that make you or make us scared is come from something called the Uncanny Valley.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if you've heard of this.
No,
the Uncanny
never.
Valley. I'll see if I can get it up on my phone. But basically, it's just this graph where as things become more normal, so like things are quite terrifying when they're really obscure and like weird and you can't really trace what it is, either side of the scale, right? And then as it gets to the middle, where things are really human, just in between, like either side of that. So let's say you see a doll that's like almost human, but it's just not. Yeah. That's the most like scared you can be of stuff. So stuff like expressionless masks, clowns, masks in general, because you don't know what's under that, and your brain even wants you to figure out what.
Or even like as we were saying, like almost like humanoid, but like demon figures, or even like aliens, things like that. They're just like, there's something creepy about them because it's like this sort of human, but it's not.
Anything that's literally just off.
Yeah.
So you can look at it, and first look, you might even go, "Oh, that looks fairly normal,"
and then you double click and you're like, "What the hell?"
Like, whoa. Yeah. That's insane. I'll see if I can get up any photos to show you, but yeah.
I thought Jason Voorhees. I remember watching the first couple of like Friday the 13th movies, and like I remember just one night, like you watch something when you're young and it proper freaks you out. I just remember one night watching one of the Friday the 13th movies, and I remember just being awake in bed and I just couldn't get sleep, and I was like just proper sweating. And I remember I just kept thinking that at some point it was almost like I was going to see him at the foot of my bed.
That's what I got a bit like with that Scream thing with the mask.
Right, yeah.
It was like that freaky mask. I just thought I'm just going to look out the window and I'm just going to see the Scream mask.
It's weird like how that happens though, doesn't it? When you get like taken hold by something like that, and that psychological fear sort of starts creeping into your psyche. It was a bit like what you were saying about your ex-girlfriend who sort of had that thing.
Yeah.
She just watched it to the point she went so balls deep with it.
Yeah.
That like she just started almost like seeing terrifying things everywhere.
Just out of the corner of her eye and stuff,
Yeah, whereas obviously if you don't watch horror movies, you don't read up about things like that, you walk around life in a very obviously things aren't scary. You walk in your landing, you're not like, there's a creature on my landing. You're just walking on your landing. Like,
Yeah, it's like the darkness, like being scared of the dark and stuff. Like now, I love it so much. Like I don't get freaked out by it at all. Like or like going out for a walk in nature in the woods and stuff like that. Like I could do that in the pitch black and feel safe as houses. But like so like Meg like really can't do that. She gets proper freaked out.
Yeah, I have to say, it doesn't bother me at all. Like things like going out at night or anything like that. Like being in like the woods at night wouldn't freak me out. Or like being in like a cemetery at night, it wouldn't freak me out. Anything like that. I found like the dark and the nighttime actually quite like peaceful.
Yeah,
I think the cemetery would freak me out purely because I almost in places like that. We spoke about energies of places before.
Oh yeah.
In cemeteries, I don't know why. I think there's just always that weird feeling of being a bit like, even though you know most of the people there probably lived a nice happy life. Yeah, everything like that. There's almost a feeling of like, I can't really describe it, but it's just off. I've got an example here as well of like an. How
that's
creepy is that?
Pointing at the camera, man, so people can have a look.
That's so weird.
Yeah, crazy. It's just anything that's slightly off, like dolls, masks.
Yeah, or as I said, like that, like the Michael Myers mask, for example. A lot of people are scared of that.
Those like
Jason
China
Voorhees.
dolls you get as well in like little kids' rooms and stuff. Like my sister had a load of those in her room, and I was like, how do you sleep with them next to you on the bed? They're just so freaky, like the little Russian dolls and that. Or, like, you know.
I think like talking about masks, though, I think it's the double whammy with masks. Is it's like what you were saying, Nathaniel. Oh, sorry, Darth.
Twangle.
Darth Twangle. But it's also the fear of what's underneath the mask. Do you know what I mean? Like, why are they wearing that mask? Like, what do they look like underneath?
Horrible, freaky face.
That's
you can
freaky.
only let your imagination do it. And as well, it's like, I think when you look at someone, for instance, if you're looking at me now, you can trace my emotions from my face.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you can see, I'm chilled out, I'm chatting.
We almost naturally do that. As like a species, we're like tracing how people look and everything. It's almost like if you can't do that,
then that's
what freaks me most up about like the alien thing as well. It's like there could be like this technologically advanced like race that's like quite like emotionless, you know, and that could be, you know, we're so humanized with like our emotions and everything that there could be something that could be more intelligent than us, yet just totally cold to emotion, just be doing something to you that's just like.
Well, I think that's the fear of AI as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
because you couldn't reason with AI on like a level like. You can appeal to other humans like emotions, like, oh man, like put yourself in my shoes. Like, I needed to do this because if I didn't, then you know my
that's that like coldness of like of technology.
You can't reason like that with with something that's just cold, something that doesn't understand emotion. You couldn't do that with. It's freaky, man.
Freaky deaky.
I think like just like horror movies from my point of view that I think would like stand out if anybody wants like good examples. I think old school classics that I'm a really big fan of. Devil Rides Out with Christopher Lee. And I think Peter Cushing as well. Rosemary's Baby, old classic. Rosemary's Baby is so good. You don't ever really see anything. It's all just pure psychological terror. So good, just such a classic.
Pure psychological terror.
Yeah, I think the first Candyman movie is good, but a bit like depressing. It's very like dark, but definitely psychologically like well written. Do you know what I mean? Because it definitely takes you on the cycle. Like afterwards, it's one of those things. You know, you watch something and you're like, afterwards you're like, I just need to like watch like an episode of a comedy or something.
Yeah,
just to get me back to normal. Because if I just like go to bed now or something, then I'm just not going to sort of feel right. Yeah, it's just definitely one of them.
Have you seen the newest one that's came out?
What, the new
Candyman?
No, I didn't even know there was one of it.
Yeah.
Oh no, actually, it was recently. Was it recently? Was it?
Yeah.
Right,
real recently.
Right.
I went to watch it. It was good.
Was it?
I wouldn't say I was like scared or terrified at any point.
Right.
But it was just cool, cinematic. I think it was the director was the guy who filmed Get Out.
Right.
But it was a really cool movie. Just not. I wasn't sat in my chair going, "Oh God." Do you know what I mean?
I think the original guy that played Candyman, I want to say his name's Tony Todd, which is quite a funny name, but I think he was like perfect for the part. He's like just a big dude. Do you know what I mean? With a real like looming doomy voice, just like Helen.
Right.
I remember like just creepy scenes where like she'd think she was on her own, and then suddenly just a Helen.
Oh my God.
Helen.
No, thank
and then she
you.
just like he just come out from under her bed and she'd just be like proper terrified. I remember another thing I thought was really good about Candyman. I think I've seen this done in a couple of other things as well. Might have even happened once in the Enfield haunting.
Did you ever say it in the mirror though?
Yeah, I think I did. I just couldn't help myself, even though it's like real stupid. Because that's the whole tale, and it's like if you say Candyman 5 times in the mirror, he'll appear behind you. But I think it might have happened in the Enfield haunting as well, or maybe it like made you think that it might happen. I don't know, but there's like a scene in Candyman I remember, and I think that the idea of this is terrifying. Whereas like I think there's something comforting about the thought that like no matter how terrifying of a situation you're in, if other humans are around, you're sharing that experience. Do you know what I mean? And it's almost like you feel like even if there's nothing you can do, you've almost like got each other's backs.
Yeah.
Whereas there's something really like. I can remember there's a scene where it's almost like they think that she's mad because like he's there in front of her, but like he's like somehow appeared to her, but it's like invisible to everyone else in the room. So she is like proper
freaked out
and losing it, and they literally think that she's like crazy, and they put her like in a straitjacket and everything, and he's there like almost like taunting her. And the idea of that, like imagine like the idea of something being in the room now, and like you could see it, but everyone else, and like. Obviously, yeah, the other two of us would be like, what are you on about, man? Like, we're looking at the other one, like, the other one that can't see it, like, I think he's freaking lost it, you know what I mean? Anyway, man, I think we're going to have to wrap up today's show. Thanks for chilling with us, guys, for our Halloween edition of Pandora's Box. I, as always, have been Mr. Calum Waite, or is my name, in fact, Obadiah Pennywhistle. Mr. Drew Armstrong has been...
I've been Orb, thank you very much.
Nathaniel Warren has been...
Darth Thwomble.
Whatever his name is. Cheers, guys. Have a good and gruesome Halloween.
Cheers.
Bye.